Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Tara and I'm the account manager here at Charity Digital. I'll be your host for today and would like to give you all a really warm welcome to this afternoon session. So before we get started, please do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining from today. And firstly, as a quick intro to Charity Digital, we are a registered charity in the UK and our mission is to help other charities to increase their impact by being more digital. And we do this through two main activities. So the first of those is providing access to software products that charities need at dramatically reduced prices. And the second is by publishing content in the form of articles, podcasts, and videos, and running webinars and events such as the one taking place today to educate charity professionals and volunteers on how to make better use of digital tools and technologies. So our session today is on how charities can effectively protect data, and it's going to be led by David Massey, who is the Managing Director at the Apprentice Store, and Joel Hogan, who is our Customer Success Manager here at Charity Digital. So today's session sets out to cover, among other things, the primary risks facing charities at present, the way charities can mitigate such risks, why charities need effective backup solutions, and advanced management strategies for the cloud. So just before I hand over to Joel to get started, I just wanted to share a few house rules and pointers for today's session. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand within a week's time. So if anyone signed up and not been able to join us today, then you will still have access to that. The slides and other resources will also be made available to you post-event. So please don't worry if you have to leave early or if you've missed something along the way. And closed captions are available for today's session. To enable these, please go to the bottom of the Zoom window and click on the up arrow button next to closed caption and then select show subtitle. During the webinar, please do feel free to ask lots of questions in the Q&A section, which is located again at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar, and then Joel and David will address as many of these as possible at the end of their presentations. And if someone sees a question that resonates particularly well with them and you'd really like to see it answered, then please do click on the thumbs up icon and that will upvote that question so that we can prioritize getting it answered. So finally, before we get started, if you do encounter any sound or image issues, please do let us know in the chat and we'll do our very best to make sure that everything is running smoothly again as soon as possible. So without further ado, let me hand over to John.
Hi, Tara. Thank you very much for that, the warm hand over there. And good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. I certainly am myself. Now, in the modern digital age, data is one of the valuable assets for any organization, including charities and non-profits. Now, from donor information to financial records and operational details, safeguarding this data is critical for ensuring continued operations and maintaining trust. Now, backing up data, should I say, is not just a technical necessity, but a cornerstone of responsible organizational management. And my name is Joel Hogan. I'm the Customer Success Manager at Charity Digital. For over 7 years, I've been providing support to charities in a number of ways, from frontline support, such as live chat and email, to delivering consultations, webinars, and focus groups. So today, let's look at the importance of backing up data. So today our session is essentially split into two, as Tara explained there. So we've got two main sections as we have two presenters. So I'm going to start off today's session by providing some general but important information about backing up data. We'll be taking a look at the risks of not backing up data, cybersecurity considerations, the benefits of backing up your data, and then some best practices too. After those slides, I'll be handing the session to David Massey from the Apprentice Store. David will talk about such things about why you need to back up Microsoft or Google and why there's still a need to back up on servers and laptops. David will also be discussing the benefits of a unified security management platform and provide a demonstration of Acronis and its offers there. So without further ado, I'm going to start by talking about the risks for not backing up your data. So charities face a range of risks if they fail to implement effective data backup strategies. Now, the most obvious place to start is, of course, data loss, which can be caused by a number of different factors that I'm sure we've all experienced at some point or the other. So human error can lead to accidental deletion or overwriting of files. This is permanent data loss, which is not great for charities which have stretched resources already or may not have the correct process or software in place to counteract errors like this. Like I said, I'm sure we've all experienced hardware failure as well, such as disk crashes or general malfunctions, leading to data being inaccessible. Even the software we use can be corrupted, such as like having bugs or provide incompatible updates. That also leads to data loss. And some of us unfortunately experience natural disasters such as floods, storms, which some of us will be experiencing shortly today, or even fire that can destroy on-premise data storage. So if you save all of your data to a specific device that resides in an office and something happens to that office or area, that data is vanquished. Now, we certainly think about backing up our data for the risks that I've just mentioned, but we also mentioned backing up our data as a cyber security measure or layer of protection. Now, there are many different types of cybersecurity threats in the world today, with ransomware, malware, and phishing attacks leading the way. So we spoke a lot about these in the past, but just to briefly run over those. So a ransomware attack is when cyber criminals can encrypt your data, demanding payment for its release. Failure to comply may result in permanent loss of data. Even complying with the criminals can still lead to data loss as well. Malware is usually software that comes as either an email attachment or an external web link that can damage files, obtain sensitive information, or provide just general disruption to your operations. And phishing attacks can result in unauthorized access for a cyber criminal to your systems, leading to data theft, loss, or corruption. Now, another risk is operational disruption. So losing your data could be catastrophic, obviously. Now, you could lose information regarding your donors, perhaps schedules for volunteers, or even very important things like payment details and information. Rebuilding or recollecting lost data requires time, effort, and most of the time financial resources that could have been used elsewhere, and in a much more impactful way to your charity's mission. Now, meeting legal and compliance requirements with data loss would certainly be bad news, of course. With data protection regulations we have to meet, such as GDPR, non-compliance could result in hefty fines and legal action. And the final risk on this list is reputational damage that would be caused to your charity due to data loss. Our stakeholders, users, and donors expect responsible data management. You and I would expect that of any organization that we provide our sensitive details to be responsible. If your charity is found to have lost its data, credibility, public image, lack of trust, they're all words and phrases that would be associated with your charity's future. So this will most likely be covered a little more later, but when creating and managing backups, it is essential to account for cybersecurity to ensure that backups themselves are not vulnerable. You'll want to implement strong encryption protocols for when data is being uploaded and downloaded, as well as when the data is at its rest point by being stored into backup systems. Now, you want to restrict access control to authorized staff only by implementing role-based access control, or RBAC for short. Multi-factor authorization should also be implemented in general, not just for backing up your data. I'm sure most of us are used to it now by getting codes or authenticator apps. I'm sure we've all got lots of them all over our mobile phones, but it is really important step for security. Now, you'll also want to conduct regular tests of backup systems to ensure recovering processes work efficiently, as well as simulate various disaster scenarios to test the speed and reliability of data restoration. Now, we spoke a little bit about natural disasters already, but you'll want to store physical on-premise backups across multiple geographic locations if you can. Also, when backing up to the cloud, ensure that your providers offer multiple data centers across multiple locations rather than just having one data center in one area in case that was hit by some sort of natural disaster. Now, ideally, you'll want to also develop a response plan to address backup failures, cyber attacks, and even natural disasters, and ensure all key staff are familiar with the plan. And you'll also want to implement systems, a backup anomaly detection that monitors backups for unusual patterns, such as unexpected deletions. This could help you indicate if there has been a security or data breach or possible corruption. So there can be some significant benefits for charities that implement a backup strategy and system. So firstly, data protection will protect against accidental data loss, malicious attacks and system failures. This can preserve essential records and files that are critical to the operational success of your charity. Backing up your data allows for strong business continuity, so your operations can be uninterrupted or face minimum interruption by enabling rapid recovering from failures, as well as minimize downtime and associated costs during unforeseen events. Now, you will meet data protection laws and regulations, which demonstrates both accountability and professionalism, which is not only important for regulators, such as our GDPR regulators, but also for your donors, beneficiaries, and stakeholders to enhance trust in your relationship and your charity. Now, in regards to the benefits of cloud-based backups, you have, and you've got a few words in slightly smaller fonts at the bottom there, but I'll go through them briefly. So scalability, so that's to adapt to your organization's growing data needs without additional infrastructure investments. Cost effectiveness, so that's to reduce upfront costs associated with physical storage. Accessibility, so that's to facilitate remote access to backups, enabling quick recovery even from off-site locations. Automation, so that's to automate regular backups to eliminate the risk of human error and ensure consistency. Disaster recovery, so that's to quickly recover from catastrophic events, ensuring minimal disruption to your services. And then security enhancements, so access to potential built-in security features such as encryption, firewalls, and intrusion detection systems. So next are some best practice examples for implementing backup data solutions, which should maximize the benefits of investing into backup data solutions and minimize the risks as well. So you want to develop a backup policy which has clear guidelines on the frequency you back up your data, storage locations, and responsibilities. Backing up data frequency priorities should be based on how often a set of data is updated. So important information such as billing details, donor information should be backed up once a day. Now, the National Cybersecurity Centre states that as a rule of thumb, you should back up anything that you value or anything that would inconvenience you if you could not access that data. So that's from like I said, the National Cybersecurity Centre. Now you'll want to adopt the 3-2-1 rule. So that's maintain 3 copies of data, the primary data set and 2 backup copies. The 2 is used to different storage mediums. So that's local disks and cloud storage for redundancy. And then the 1 is store at least 1 copy in a remote or off-site location for disaster recovery. Now, you should regularly update backup systems by staying current with software updates and security enhancements. You should also periodically evaluate backup solutions to ensure that they meet the evolving needs of your charity. You also want to provide training on data backup protocols, cybersecurity, and compliance training to your staff. Now, you could do this by running education workshops on recognizing phishing and social engineering attacks. There are software solutions out there that can certainly help you out with this as well, which is great. And you would also want to monitor the health of your backup systems. There are tools, again, out there that can help you do this. You can set up alerts for incomplete backups or unexpected file changes. And you should evaluate the vendors or providers of your backup options. So perform due diligence and assess their security certifications, compliance tracks record, and support services. Alongside this, in general, you should be conducting regular audits of your backup systems too. So for charities, protecting data is essential to maintaining operations, meeting legal requirements and preserving trust with donors and beneficiaries. Backing up data, especially leveraging secure cloud-based solutions, is a reliable, cost-effective way to mitigate risks and ensure resilience in the face of disruption. By adopting best practices, integrating cybersecurity measures, and committing to continuous improvement, charities can safeguard their mission and continue making a positive impact in their communities. So from there, I'm going to kindly pass over to David to take over. Hope you find the information useful. Hey, hi, David.
Hi, Joel, and hello, everybody, and welcome from the north of Scotland, which is where we are based. So yeah, so as Tara said, so I'm David Massey. I'm the managing director of a business called the Apprentice Store. Can everybody see that? I don't know, because everybody's disappeared from here. But so we are a social enterprise that's based in the north of Scotland, and we exist for our social purpose to create sustainable employment for young people. We operate as a managed service provider, so we provide a range of services, and we have partnership with a number of organisations. So our service is kind of split into two things. One is managed technology services, which includes data protection. We're a Microsoft partner, but we also do web development focused around WordPress, and we have an amazing partner of a fast host that works with us on that. So today I'm going to be talking about data protection and really focusing in what we can do. So I'll start with the fact of the cloud services. A lot of people think that when they go to the cloud, they don't have to worry about the data. So both Google and Microsoft operate with this shared responsibility model. And here are a set of obligations that are there from the Microsoft. And you can see that I've highlighted that as a customer, you are responsible for the data backup, because surprisingly, Microsoft do not back up your data. They duplicate your data into multiple data centers, but if that data is corrupted, deleted, it will be that corruption and deletion will be duplicated across their data centers. And they only retain the data for a small period of time that may not be compliant with your data recovery objectives. So you can see there that the longest you've got the ability to be able to recover some data is 93 days. And one of the things that we find is really challenging is the ability to be able to recover your file structure. So there's a thing called file version history, which does maintain the history of an individual file. And we have the recycle bill in OneDrive and SharePoint. But the ability to be able to recover large volumes of data to a given point in time becomes very challenging with the built-in technology. Microsoft themselves have only just released the backup product, but it's been reliant upon third-party vendors to be able to provide backup solutions up to now. But there is one natively available from Microsoft. It's not the cheapest. It's based around Azure. So if you've got access to Azure credit, so every charity gets access to $2,000 worth of Azure credit, which you could use with the Azure, with the Microsoft backup service. So whilst I'm talking about Acronis, you do have an option through your Azure credit to be able to back up with Microsoft. But that doesn't meet one of Joel's objectives of making sure it's in different infrastructure, because with that, you're backing up from Microsoft to Microsoft, so therefore it stays in the infrastructure. Whereas the Acronis offering is it goes into a different data center, so it actually is geographically not located with the Microsoft infrastructure. Here is a summary of the shared responsibilities for Google. And again, you see that the long-term data retention obligation is yours. And Google have slightly different sets of criteria. And you can see that there's much shorter times than you get with Microsoft. But there are some key things which are not available within there. So you need a backup solution in order to be able to protect that. And when I talk to many people about this, they're surprised that their cloud services are not backed up, because a lot of people refer to it as I back up to the cloud because you use OneDrive, G Drive, Dropbox. None of those services are actually a backup product. So it's be aware through education like this that it is your responsibility to back up your data. Read the terms and conditions of any hosting service to make sure you're aware of is it your responsibility to protect your data. Whilst we still use the core of our data for as a business, all of our data is held upon inside 365. There are still obligations to protect data on our computers, and we see this across our clients. So we have laptops that carry around data, and whilst that might be a synchronized copy of data from Dropbox, OneDrive, or your G Drive, you've got applications that store data locally on there. Users have a habit of creating their own file locations, so it needs to make sure that you do protect that data if it's important to you. Whilst we're seeing a reduction in the number of servers that are being deployed, we're also seeing an increased number of network attached storages. So again, you might back up to that NAS appliance in the office, which may be connected to across the internet. It still needs to be backed up. This application data pieces, we see lots of third-party applications. So account systems are a common one. So people who haven't gone to the cloud for that data needs to be backed up. It needs to be taken off site, and you need to automate that as much as you possibly can. And what we're seeing an increasing demand for is we've got critical computers that are the only device that actually delivers a lot of business function. And the loss of that computer through hardware failure, the flood, fire, theft, that there's a major disruption to the business. So you could look at a full, what we refer to as a bare metal. So you go out and buy a new computer and you restore the complete configuration of the computer that was replaced back onto that device. So these are the things that we feel that there's still a requirement for file backup, whilst the bulk of our data today is probably stored on a cloud service like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. Joel mentioned there about disaster recovery. So the flood, fire, theft and hardware failures still exist. And just because you've got a device with cloud services and logically you can connect any new device to those cloud services and get access to your data, there are still risks and there's a loss to your business and disruption through that. So you need to think about those failures. Data corruption can happen inside cloud services. So if you've got a synchronized G Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, or Dropbox, cryptography attacks can still iterate through all of those, and that spreads out across your network. We see a growing demand on internet connections and the levels of resilience within that and the network infrastructure that people have on premise. And whilst we operate distributed, there are still some critical infrastructures in offices that need to be dealt with. And within some backup services to the cloud, you have the ability of doing a rapid recovery to the cloud. So what cloud services are really good for is helping meet the recovery point objective, which means that we can back up very regularly because it just takes lots of small incremental backups, but it can be really challenging to meet the recovery time objective, which is how quick you can get back, because you might have 300 gigs worth of data that you've backed up over 12 months, but you want it all back now, and that might take some time to come back. So some backup services have the ability of being able to generate a working server computer in the cloud relatively quickly so that you can get up and working and get access to your data much, much faster. One of the critical things with disaster recovery is the ability to be able to test your ability to be able to recover without disrupting your existing business. So if you're looking at DR solutions, make sure that you have the ability and understand the implications of how you can do the testing of that solution, because sometimes that actually requires you to have a different internet connection, a complete different network infrastructure, so that you can't do the recovery in a tested and isolated environment. And I think the final point that I think Joel touched on is when you're outsourcing any service, you're not outsourcing the risk. So if you engage an organization like us to look after your technology, it's still your risk. We're helping share that risk, but it's still your risk. you're taking services from Google and Microsoft, they'll take over quite a lot of the risk, but there's some of the responsibilities of yours. So make sure that when you're outsourcing, understand what risks still stand with you, and make sure that you address those in an appropriate way for your organization. And what works for one organization doesn't necessarily work for another. And we find there's a lot within the third sector where clients follow what other people do, and they can end up with inappropriate solutions. Acronis is quite a varied and scalable platform. So here's kind of the range of the services. We're starting on the first step, which is the data backup and protection, but that can be extended into email, your data leakage, your security endpoint management, and it's now in a position where that will go all the way into the cloud and provide managed services. So as a single platform, it will help you to be able to cover all of your security in a single coherent portal, which I will show in a bit. You can outsource the day-to-day operation of that, but you as a user can keep an eye on that risk and help understand what the risk to you as a business is. So you don't have to jump in with all of it. You can jump in at varying points to put in a layered security. But so today we're on the first step where we're looking at data backup. So I'm now going to drop into the product. So this is the control panel. So this is the first level where we get the ability to be able to see what is going on. Now this is us as a business that we're looking at. So I'm showing you that we actually base our business on this. Our whole client base is managed from this platform. So here as a snapshot, I can see where we are. So we can see that we've got the number of resources that we're managing. Are there any active alerts? How are the events and events history being going on? How we are for patching to make sure security up to date. So it's a very easy way for us to manage it. And from a day-to-day point, so here is management, and we've got access to reports, so we can send out an executive summary report sort of automatically to to the management team, so they're aware of what's going on within the business. So again, we've got the similar platform here. So when we start having a look at devices, so here we can go and have a look at a device, and what Acronis does within the platform is it gives it a cyber fit score of what are you doing for this device on its protection. It looks at a number of different things. We have the ability of doing quite detailed monitoring as to the resource utilization of that individual device. We have the ability of getting hardware and software inventory and doing patch management all within the same platform. So that's kind of endpoint management. What we're talking about is backup. So this device has got a file-based policy, which we've got in there, the ability to be able to recover it. You can see that there's a history, so it meets that multiple recovery points, and you can see that that goes back some way, and you've got, I'll show you plans, you have the ability of putting quite granularity on that. So we've got the ability of being able to see the individual files of what's been backed up, and I've backed up some of my development data, so we can see the data that's in there, and we can do file restores. So this is a simulated, as often as you want, multiple recovery points to be able to recover your data. So it's very easy to work with. When we're talking about, got to say it, I need to shift this banner because it's in the way, right? So the backing up, it supports lots of different devices. So for organizations that've got a network with a server, we can do on-network discovery, and you can see we support Windows and Mac and Linux as desktop operating systems. We also support endpoint management of iOS and Android devices, and you can see we've got hypervisors, and we've got the Microsoft, which is enabled in ours, and we've got the ability of being able to back up Google Workspace. So it supports lots of backing up of data in different systems. So if I connect and have a look at Microsoft 365, so in 365 there are 5 types of structures that we've got. We've got users, teams, so that's Microsoft Teams that covers all of the data. Users are mailboxes and OneDrive. sites are SharePoint sites. There's old public folder technology and Microsoft groups, which are a slightly different version of Team. So we go and have a look at users, and I'll go and have a look at Flynn, who's somebody who used to work for us. So we can see that he's got, as do all of our staff, has got a mailbox backup, and you can see that we've got 30 days worth of backup recovery points, 12 weekly snapshots and 12 monthly snapshots. And that meets our data backup obligations, and we can have different users with different plans. But you can see we're also backing up sort of his OneDrive data as well. We get to see the backup history of how often it's backing up and whether it's available. If there are any alerts, they are exposed to us in here, so we can easily go and have a look at it. But equally, any alerts get to shown within this panel. So it's easy to manage things. The granularity of the restoring, so if we go and have a look at, come on, give it to me. Let's go and have a look at Flynn, to the recovery. Is you can see here that we've got the mailbox backup. So the recovery option is I can recover the entire mailbox. So I can go back to a specific point in time. I can recover individual messages. And because it's a mailbox, that includes calendar, contacts, tasks, as well as email. Or if I'm doing, I want to download it and take it offline, I can export that into what's called a PST, download that, and then being able to access that. And when we look at a OneDrive, so again, this is the same interface where we can see the point in time. This was backed up at 4:11, and I get a virtual representation of this user's data. So for us, this is the desktop on the laptop of that user. So therefore, I've got the ability of being able to see that data that's on there, and we synchronize OneDrive and other attributes, so we can see all of their data is backed up, regardless of whether it's sitting in the cloud or sitting on the endpoint. We have the capability of doing that, and that's kind of the end of that quick run through on the product set. Except what I needed to show you was plans. So if we look at cloud plans, right? So so here we've got the ability of being able to say that we wanted to back up a Google Drive. What is it we want to back up? What's the data retention? Do I want to encrypt that data? So this is, you encrypt it before it's transmitted, so therefore it's stored with an encryption algorithm before it's written into the data center. So the data is encrypted in transmission and at rest, but this is you putting a secondary level of encryption on that only you know, and only people who know that encryption key will be able to restore and access it. This notarization is basically making sure that your data is not corrupted when it's at rest, so that you can regenerate it with confidence. So they've got the ability of having multiple plans, which are available, and said there are protection plans. So here's the backup plan that was set for me. So if I can say that I wanted to create a new backup plan, you see here we've got the entire machine. So this allows us to be able to do a disaster recovery of a machine. I want to back up a whole disk, or I want to back up selected files. We also support SQL Server databases, and anybody who's got on-premise email systems or are using ESX or Hyper-V are available for backup. So that is a quick run over of Acronis. I could spend 2 hours talking about any individual component of it, but hopefully it shows that there's a system which will allow you to have a single platform where you can see and manage the security and integrity of your data. And there's a whole set of other services that we've not looked at because we're focusing on data backups today. How easy it is to back up, how easy it is to set the retention, how easy it is to encrypt the data, and more importantly, how easy it is to restore. I think one of the things when we're talking about full machines, and we see that people struggle with, is if you've got a large volume of data, that the initial seed, so if you've got a terabyte worth of data and you've got a very slow internet connection, one of the things Acronis can support is the ability of, we write that to a removable drive, that drive is shipped to a data center and then it's brought online, so the initial seed doesn't have to consume your bandwidth. So just a summary. So these are the resources that are backed up with Microsoft 365 and Google. Acronis is available in two licensing models. One is it's based upon the number of license users that are in Microsoft or Google. And that's license users, not email addresses. So shared mailboxes are free. Teams are free. You can have as many SharePoint sites as you want. It's licensed users that have access to that. Or you can back it up the data based upon the volume. And we look at if you've got about 20 gigs per person, it's usually cheaper, or so 20 gigs or more, it's usually cheaper to back up by using the user mode rather than the volume mode. So we've got a client that's got 60 people, but they only have 600 gigs worth of data, so they're paying by volume. But we've got the reverse, where we've got an organization that's got 6 users, but they've got 2 terabytes worth of data, so they back up with the user mode because it offers unlimited storage. The offer that we've got through Acronis that is available to you on the products are here, and the way this works is you buy a discount code from Charity Digital, then go to our website, and that offers you a discount. So when you go to our website, you're looking for the volume based on the left-hand side, you will select whether you want the Google or Microsoft product, select which band you want to buy in, buy the appropriate number, and apply your discount code, which will drop the price that you see on our website from the middle to the price on the right, because we are offering a 50% discount. If you choose to go down the volume mode, what you'll see there's based upon the band that you're committing to, and these are all annual prices. And we can offer more than 250 seats, and we can offer more than 2 terabytes, but we usually do that in a slightly different way because there's usually a set of other requirements are in there. People who are buying more than 100 seats, we're happy for that to be paid monthly rather than to be paid as a full upfront, because we know it's going to be a lot of money. So we can offer those products. The important thing about the data volume is that you can back up Microsoft 365 and Google and files, but you can also say that if you've got a large volume of data in the cloud platform, take that per user. And if you want files, you can then just buy the storage for the file backup. And we see that people have got email in the cloud, but they've still got servers, so they back up with both sets. But we only offer a 30% discount on the volume-based backup. And we provide full support, management onboarding. We make it very easy for organizations to be able to do it, and we provide a oversight to help you manage that infrastructure. So that is my quick run over of some data protection options and how Acronis can protect you. And it's now any questions. So
Brilliant. Hello, so I'll jump back in here. Thank you both so much. There were lots of really helpful takeaways there, and I'm sure the audience will agree. So yeah, as David said, we'll now get into the Q&A, and I can see that there have already been a lot of questions. So thank you so much to everybody for your participation. And don't forget that if you see any questions in the Q&A section that you would like to see answered, then please do use the thumbs up icon so that we can get them upvoted and prioritize answering those ones. So let me just get into the Q&A section. Yeah, and starting off, the first question we have is, what is the most common mistake that charities make when selecting backup solutions?
Sure. I'll just start off as a sort of a more obvious answer before going to David, but is selecting the right partner to do it with. The one thing with IT providers or solutions is that once you develop a relationship with them, they can get really, in good ways, get entangled with your infrastructure because they need back-end access to a lot of things to help your software and things grow. But if something were to change of that, depending on the professionalism of the organization you're working with, some make it harder for you to end a working relationship than others. Unfortunately, I've heard some, I've heard of some nasty examples of the past of, for example, IT companies blocking access to data, or even stuff Microsoft 365, so they can't even receive or send emails anymore, anything like that, just from not having the correct handover or anything like that. And that could come down with a little bit more to some sort of investigation or due diligence to ensure that you are working with the right company, not necessarily the cheapest. You want to look at the history of the organization that you're working with. That'd be my answer to that. What about you, David?
Yeah, I think we see this, and I've worked for IT providers who very much do get the claws into the business and don't let go. What we're seeing is that has eased to a degree, because what we now find is that there's quite common to find more than one provider in. But we have seen situations where charities have had to continue paying more for their backup solution because their new vendor won't monitor a different system. So we've got a client where we manage the backups, but they have an IT provider who does everything else because they're not interested. So I think that collaboration piece, and as you say, choose the vendor, ask the questions. But there's that piece of it's your backup, it's your risk. Why can't you manage it as well?
Brilliant. Thank you both very much for your answers there. And the next question that we have comes from Nicola, who has asked, how does the move to paperless systems fit with the advice to keep 3 copies of data in 2 different mediums? Can both mediums both be electronic?
Yes.
Yes.
It would be the simple answer. Yes, yes, indeed.
I think the issue is if you're digitizing it, make sure that you maintain the index so that you know where things are, because paper has a habit of degrading over time.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, sure. Thank you, David. So yeah, moving on to the next question, which comes from Becky. Becky asks, can you recommend a secure file transfer system for sharing sensitive documents to other professionals you're working with, where the file is too big to send via an encrypted email?
Should I go first?
Go for it, David. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're using either Google or Microsoft, you have the ability there to be able to deal with that. So you can create an area on Google Workspace, and you can share that area. With Microsoft, you have the ability of creating an area or sharing an individual file. But both of them have security and compliance, and it overcomes that problem. The added benefit of doing that is you get co-authoring. The data never leaves your data regime, so therefore it meets your data compliance. And you can revoke access, which if you share the document by another means, you've kind of lost control over that document.
Great, thank you so much, David. Joel, I don't know if you had anything to add or if we should move on.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main 2 answers there. And one thing I could say just outside of the right sort of option there is that a trend that we've seen at Charity Digital for years in terms of Google and Microsoft is that both are extremely popular. We do see a trend of charities, smaller organizations mostly tend to start out with Google and then they move over to Microsoft for some of its sort of extra security features. That's not to say that Google doesn't have them, and there's plenty of large organizations that use Google as well, but it's certainly it's just a trend that we've seen that it might be to do with the fact that smaller charities, once they reach a certain size, can afford some sort of IT support, and maybe the IT support is pushing them towards Microsoft. Maybe they're a bit more Microsoft heavy. That could be one of the reasons for that as well. But yeah, just my comment on that.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. That's brilliant. Thank you both very much. So yes, next question comes from Sarah, who shared that within her organization, they use Dropbox for file storage and don't save anything on their own computers, but asked, should we also back up with something else as well as Dropbox?
Yeah, absolutely. Acronis would be a starting point for sure on that one. Would you agree, David?
Yeah. Dropbox is not a backup, it's a file synchronization service. So if you delete or corrupt a file in Dropbox, it will go everywhere. The only device that won't get the corruption is one that's not on at that time. As soon as it gets on, it will get the corruption. So yeah, please do back up your data, because Dropbox don't.
I think to reiterate, David, one of the big main takeaways from what you've presented so well today is one of the big ones is the fact that the services we think we know so well do not automatically back up our data. So the things like you say, Microsoft, Google, Dropbox in this example of question, it's not automatic. That isn't backing up data as well. So if there is any main takeaways of that from today, that's certainly something that would certainly stick in my mind.
Amazing. Thank you both very much. So yes, moving on to the next question. We've got plenty to get through, but it looks like we've got a good amount of time. So Laurie asked, we are a small charity and we use OneDrive for backing up information. Do you think this is sufficient, and how can we find out which DR is in place?
Well, that depends on how you're using OneDrive. So what we find with most people is they store the documents in OneDrive, so therefore it's not a backup. Whereas if you actually have your file somewhere and then you're copying it to OneDrive, it is a backup. So it's understand what the risk is, and think about that consequence. Because OneDrive is not backed up. You have 30 days worth of recycle bin. You have 30 days of deletions, but the point being is after that, you've got no ability to recover any data. And if you unlicense a user, you lose access to that data.
Great, and thank you, David, for taking that on. That's really great advice. And John, perhaps this one's a little bit more for you. So the next question is, are there data backup services available to purchase via Charity Digital?
Absolutely, it's Acronis. That's the one. That's about Acronis is on there, and there's also a different solution there by Verity,
Semantic, isn't it?
as well, which in the past as well. And also you can obviously purchase, as David spoke about, the directly with Microsoft. They have a little bit more of their own expensive version of backups as well. But yeah, have a look at the Acronis offer just to explain it. So it's for our Charity Digital, it's an access to discounted rates for any of you using our services for a while. That means that you're purchasing essentially a discount code, which then means you would take that code to set it up directly with the Apprentice store. So it's 50%. It lasts for a 1 year subscription, depending on what you're after. Then after that, the Apprentice store will then contact you directly with a new discount voucher for you to renew for the second year at a discounted rate if you choose to go ahead. And then after that, if you are having, you're very happy with the services, you'll just need to repurchase the voucher again from Charity Digital from the 3rd year onwards, to explain. But yeah, Acronis has some great discount codes. Like I said, 50% off and it's not too much funds for the discount code itself.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, Microsoft have now got their 365 backup, which is an Azure service. It's complicated to set up, but you do have $2,000 worth of Azure credit. So use that before you spend any money with us. But if you're using your Azure credit somewhere else, but you might need to engage a professional person to do the setup, which will cost you. But it's just there is that option that's available from Microsoft.
I've just posted sorry for the long link, it's because of the filters, but I've just posted it in the chat on their Charity Digital site where you can look at the Acronis offers.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Joel, for sharing that resource with the audience. The next sort of question in the Q&A section, it's not a question, but a comment as much, but I'll share it with you guys in case there's anything that you're able to add or advise. So somebody said, you're making me wonder about our online systems like Xero and our CRM system, and what backup these have, because without them, we would lose all of our data.
Yeah, we use Xero, so we're aware of pretty much the implications within there. So in their lengthy terms and conditions, there is a line that says you're responsible to back up your data, and there are backup services that are available for Xero. But they do back it up and they have the ability to recover, but it's brutal. But it's your responsibility to deal with that.
Thank you, and thank you, David. Move on to the next question, which comes from Becky, who asked, if a data subject requests a hard copy of a sound recording the organisation has made of a meeting with them that they have instructed us to make, and sending it electronically is not accessible for them due to a protected characteristic. What is the most secure method of providing this? We have been advised by our IT provider to not use any plug-in hardware, e.g. USB pen drives, as they pose a risk of corrupting our systems.
That's the IT provider with a clause. So I think the simple fact is, yes, download it, keep it on encrypted devices. It's perfectly acceptable to use a pen drive. Make sure it's from a clean source. So, but if you've got good security and endpoint protection and education of staff, you can mitigate a lot of those risks. So I would say do exactly what they're suggesting their IT provider doesn't do, just provide good governance and risk management in doing that. But if by sending it encrypted, send the key out and then send the encryption key to the individual by some other means.
Thank you very much, David. The next question comes from Vincent, who asks, or who says, we already have a, oh, sorry, my screen's just jumped down. Bear with me, guys. So yeah, we already have Acronis backing up our Microsoft 365 environment as shown in the demo. How do we meet the 3 copies rule? Do we need Acronis to back up somewhere other than the cloud storage as well?
It depends upon where your Acronis backup goes to. So there's options. So you can, their default behavior subject to where you bought it from is it would back up into one of their data centers, which they duplicate to a second data center. You can elect to put that into Amazon or Azure cloud storage, which again, they can then start duplicating it. So if you're really worried about it, yes, you can do it, but obviously that does increase the costs around that. So I think our view to this is the risk is you've got the resilience that Microsoft offer for a massive failure of their infrastructure for you to lose it. If their infrastructure is up and you've got some data corruption, what you're needing is the backup to deal with it. I think the 3 location different media is to deal with some of the historic things about doing things on premise, but because we're going cloud to cloud, there's sufficient resilience within those infrastructures, and we feel comfortable with that risk. Do you have anything to add to that, Joel?
No, I think you've answered better than me on that one, to be fair.
That was a really insightful answer. Thank you, David. Yeah, so we've got a few more to get through. If time allows, we may not quite get to the end, but the next question is from Glenn, who asked, if a business is unfortunate enough to have a cyber attack, how do you know how long you need to go back to retrieve the data that is safe? Presumably, you could back up data that is corrupted.
Yeah, that's the challenging one around when did it get in, how long has it been there. So what we tend to find with a lot of these things is we see the effect, but it might have been in there for up to 12 months. So there's until that diagnosis is done, you don't know. But I think about your data backup around compliance and data retention. So if you need to hold data for 7 years, you need 7 years worth of backups. It's the granularity that you choose to do that at. So I said our standard policy is 30 days, 12 weeks, and 12 months. And then we sometimes start bringing in some multiple years worth of monthly. But by the time you get that, you're then looking at very specific issues.
Yeah, just to reiterate as well, with cyber criminals, if they do gain access to your system, a common pattern is they won't necessarily act straight away. And to what David said, they're quite happy to sit and learn and watch about your systems for a good amount of time. Like David said, 12 months, so it could go on longer than that. But it's about sitting that they sit back and learn before they make any sort of changes or attacks or anything like that. So yeah, something to be to think about is that you won't receive an instant attack if you are, if you are penetrated there by a cyber criminal there.
I think if you're backing up servers, it's a slightly different situation from backing up data. So here we're talking about data. So that the restoration of the data is you want to get that back as quickly as possible. So it's more about how frequently you back up the data. Infrastructure, servers, and the configuration is more of a bigger threat when we're talking about cybercrime.
Thank you both very much. Next question comes from David, and it's an Acronis question, so maybe for David. So it starts off, GDPR affords citizens in the UK and Europe with the right to be forgotten. Furthermore, organisations may not store personally identifiable information that they do not have on a legal basis, meaning that there is an ongoing need to remove data on demand. How easy is this with Acronis when you could potentially have years worth of backups and where that data might exist in multiple areas, e.g. Multiple mailboxes, multiple OneDrives / SharePoint libraries, etc.?
Big question, big answer. So I think any backup is a problem. It's around your data governance when you do the restore. So you can't go to the backup to say that you've deleted the data. So it is in there. So that piece around the integrity of the backup. So you can't change the backup. So what you do is you restore, and it's your processes to SARs if you're recovering the data from a backup that you then delete the people at that point. So that's when, because at that point you're then processing the data, it's sitting in the backup, you're not processing the data. So you don't need to worry about it what's in the backup, it's when you do recover it.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. Yeah, that's great. We may just have time for one more question before we wrap up. So next question is from Laurie, who asked, are the seats cost per month?
They are per month and per year. So the figures that are in the slide are annual, and that's 11 months of fee, because we provide 1 month for free if you pay for it annually. I said for larger clients, we are happy to generate monthly bills.
Great, thank you, David. Great to know that there's some flexibility there. Joel, I can see that you are providing a quick written answer, so that's really helpful. Thank you. We'll squeeze one last one in. So Caroline asks, is there an inexpensive phishing testing system that can be used to test users' response to receiving a phishing email? I don't know who wants to take that one.
Do you have anything in your catalogue before I push the Acronis provision?
Well, by all means, Acronis, yeah. We probably might be on the same line there. Obviously, Know Before is a very obviously that's quite a famous one for testing. I've used it before; it's quite good. And thank you, Martin, in chat as well. They shared a phishing sort of quiz as well. Hopefully, that's wrapped up there. But by all means, David, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Acronis have partnered with an organisation called Wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And Wiser is available free of charge for security awareness training, and it does have phishing simulation in it. So the offering through Acronis is that you can pay for this, and there's training, testing, and phishing simulation, which leads to additional training with complete reporting. So we offer that at a 30% discount. Again, prices are on a website, but you don't have a discount code. But I'm happy you'll be able to offer 30% discount to anybody who's interested in that. But I said you can go and try it. You're using Wiser, but I said you can, and it's a 15-day trial that you can get access to. So you can do that as much as you want. But it's a great platform. Content's good, and it's cheaper than Know Before. Yeah, we sell both, by the way.
I was going to say Know Before. It's a great product, but it can be expensive at times, for sure. But yeah, thank you, David.
Cool. Thank you both so much. So I'm afraid that is all we have time for today. But yeah, thank you again to David and Joel and to everybody who has attended. It's great to have you with us. Our next webinar will be on elevating your social media content with Adobe Express on the 30th, so next Thursday, and we will pop a link in the webinar chat for anybody who's interested in joining us for that one and hasn't yet had the opportunity to sign up. And finally, if you could share your feedback with us for today's session, that would be fantastic. And we'll also paste a link in the chat, and you'll receive a prompt just after you leave this page. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, once again, and I do hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you today. Thank you.